Like to share with you a bit of my journey in patent law, how I got to where I am, some of what I'm doing now, and leave you with some words of counsel and encouragement if I can. And I'll use a few slides along the way if I'm able to do this. So let me just start here with this one. So these are some words or a list of adjectives that can be used to describe me at different stages of my career. I've accomplished none of them alone. I have had wonderful mentors and advisors and the blessings of God. What I had brought to the table is determination, grit, and an intrinsic motivation to excel at what I put my mind to. Not that I always succeed, but I try. You see there are 2 patents. I'm a co-inventor on a patent on reduced fat peanut butter that I'll say a bit more about in a moment from my time at P&G. And then more recently, my husband and I, and the business is now launched, have our co-inventor on a bedding patent. And in fact, we just paid the issue fee on a second bedding patent. So soon to be a co-inventor on 3 patents. Patents are great. Patents have changed my life in many wonderful ways. And I'm just so thrilled that you all are embarking in this wonderful field. This is a list of some of the things that I have been and am currently involved in. I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are things that my STEM degree, patent career, and again, the grace of God have made possible. But these are things that you might find yourself doing as well, that patent law opens just vast vistas of opportunities that you might not ever have considered before. So I'm going to stop sharing now and just tell you a bit of my story. So I've always been a pragmatist, and I've always liked to be different, to do things that not everyone else was doing. And as I tell my story, you will see that come up in different ways. I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, space capital of the world. Yes, NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, where Space Camp is. And when I was in 9th grade, a woman from the Tennessee Valley Authority came to my small parochial high school class and told us about careers in engineering. And I thought this was really interesting. It was cool. And then my dad was a college chemistry professor. And so I decided, well, let's put these together and I'll be a chemical engineer. And I made up my mind right then that that's what I wanted to be. And that was my goal. And I did a summer minority engineering program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison the next year. Did an internship with the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, both while I was still in high school. I attended Oakwood College, and Talon is an alum. It's now Oakwood University, and did summer research internships with Oak Ridge National Labs, AT&T Bell Labs. I was just moving right along, smooth sailing. I always did well in school, great grades, no problems. But then I transferred to the University of Wisconsin at Madison to complete my chemical engineering degree. And it kicked my butt, for real, for real. There were a lot of challenges. I was from Alabama, and it was Wisconsin, and it was cold and dark a lot of the time. And there were 900 Black students on a campus of 45,000 students. So there was culture shock, but it was a lot. And I almost gave up and went back to Oakwood to just finish up in chemistry. But I reached out to the professor whose class I had not done well in, and I would have to retake. Never had anything like that happen before. And he was an older white male professor, Dr. Sather. And he said he was sorry to hear that because he thought I had what it took to be a chemical engineer. And his saying that had a profound effect on me. I thought, well, he's been teaching like decades, and he's seen lots of engineers. And if he thinks I have what it takes, then I probably do. And so I stuck with it. I struggled, I persevered. I did more summer internships at Lawrence Livermore National Labs and P&G, and finished. I graduated. As near as I can tell, I'm the 3rd Black female to graduate from the University of Wisconsin in chemical engineering. And at that time, they had the #2 program in the country in that area. And I started working at Procter & Gamble, and Dr. Sather was right. I did have what it took. I was selected Rookie of the Year in Food Product Development. I was working on Jif peanut butter, And having someone believe in me made such a difference. And you all tonight have people who believe in you. You've been selected for this program. You can do this. This is not outside of the realm of your ability to do. Also, while I was at Procter & Gamble, I encountered patents. First day, I had to sign an agreement signing away rights to any inventions I developed at the company they would be owned by the company. I was always instructed to clear any tests that I wanted to run with consumers by these patent attorneys because we might be giving up rights to obtain protection in other countries. I had to sign invention notebooks and read and sign the notebooks of others. And I thought it was strange that these attorneys had so much to do with what I, as an engineer, was doing. But over time, I became more curious because I was becoming an expert on peanut butter, and I really wasn't sure how marketable that was going to be long term. And so I started looking into patents and patent law. And I also was going through the patenting process, as I mentioned, being a co-inventor on a patent on reduced fat peanut butter. And in going through that process and talking to patent attorneys, I learned a few things. My husband and I were planning to have kids one day. And once I found out that if I became a patent attorney, I could probably make more working part-time as a patent attorney than full-time as an engineer, and that only someone with a science or engineering degree could do it, I was like, sign me up. This sounds right up my alley. Pragmatic and want to be different. This sounds very different. I did my due diligence. I pulled out the yellow pages. Some of you may not know what those are, but it was something we used to have where you could look up the numbers of businesses, and the white pages, you could look up the numbers of residences. And I started cold calling patent attorneys, literally, to find out what they liked and didn't like about their jobs, because this was going to be a big move. I had always wanted to be a chemical engineer. I've been doing this for 7 years. I'm like, I really need to know what I'm getting into. And they were all friendly and willing to talk to me. And it gave me, comfort and confidence that this was a good move to make. And I promise you, I have never regretted it to this day. I decided to go to law school, enrolled at Emory. I was blessed to win a Woodruff Fellowship so I could go to law school for free. And I loved law school. I found law to be much easier than engineering school, but my work as an engineer had actually helped quite a bit. I worked really hard. I was blessed to graduate number 3 in my class, and then practiced law for 3 years, first with Smith, Gambrell & Russell, a general practice law firm, and then Finnegan, Henderson, Faribault, Garrett, and Dunner, which all they do is IP. And I greatly enjoyed being a patent attorney, but there were times that I had doubts. When I first got to law school and I went to be a patent attorney, and I told some people I wanted to do patent law, they're like, oh, why would you want to do that? Patent law is boring, And it made me start to wonder, is this really a good idea or not? And so that's one of the reasons I actually went to a general practice firm first that had an IP group. I would work in the IP group, but if I found I really didn't like it, I could move to real estate or environmental law or something like that. And it's really important to be careful what voices you listen to in terms of getting you off track from what you want to do. Not that I regret my time at Smith Gambrell, it was wonderful, but actually I found that I liked my patent work the best. I was also doing trademark, copyright, litigation. And so I moved to a firm, Finnegan, where I could really focus on that and learn from many more patent practitioners. I found claim drafting to be very daunting at first, and definitely more of an art than a science. And I remember being given my first invention disclosure to write claims for and being unsure of how to begin. The senior attorney I worked with gave me the name of another attorney. I shared the disclosure with him, and he drafted a set of claims in like no time flat. I was flabbergasted and kind of intimidated. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to do that. But before long, the more I did it, the better I got. And I got to where I could draft a set of claims in no time at all, too. And I developed the ability to generate questions for inventors to get them out of their mindset of, this is what I've invented, and try to think about, well, what would a competitor do to design around your invention? What are other ways that you might be able to do that? Also, my experience having been a researcher, having been an inventor, gave me additional credibility with inventors, and that was nice. And it was great in patent law because you're always working with things that are new. And so I was learning about new technologies, but I was not the one that had to be at the bench doing the experiments. And that, I think, is one of the real pluses of patent law. Also, when I moved to Finnegan, my main client was in Paris. And so I made lots of trips, well, I don't know lots, but several trips to Paris. And I love to travel. So patent law can also open up unimaginable new vistas to you, including travel opportunities. And ironically, I found myself being the one giving instructions to researchers sometimes with experiments that they should do to help us, for example, overcome obviousness rejections. And it was great. I loved it. I loved practicing patent law. But I hated billable hours. By that time, I had a very young child. I was pregnant literally my entire last year of law school. I found out I was pregnant the first day of class and gave birth during final exams. Yes. And firms didn't have the kind of flexible work arrangements that many of them do now back then. I believe I was working 70% of my billable hour goal for 60% of the pay. It was not cute. So when my favorite law professor reached out to me and asked if I'd ever thought about teaching, I thought about teaching and made the move to academia, which is actually very difficult to do. There's the hiring conference is called the Meat Market, and it's not called the Meat Market for nothing. I didn't even have to go through the Meat Market. So again, many blessings. I immediately developed a course on patent law and one on international patent law based on my experiences in patents, doing foreign origin work, working with clients in other countries. And that has led me to writing comparative patent law articles and commission reports and developing an expertise that has allowed me to consult with governments and several UN agencies and to now be a technical advisor to the African Union and World Intellectual Property Organization matters. Taught international patent law in other countries, and I speak and do research in close to 50 countries by now. I've trained judges on patent law, been an expert witness in patent cases, serve on a DARPA LC team. Patent law, there's so many things that I could have never imagined doing that I find myself doing and that I've done over the years. And as Ayana mentioned, starting an entrepreneurship program. Two of my newest endeavors involve highlighting innovative diversity initiatives that seek to increase the number of women and underrepresented minorities in the innovation ecosystem. That's called the Diversity Patents Initiative. And Patent Pathways is a great example of that because it involves, the project involves not only inventors, but also people who are involved in legal representation in patent prosecution. And I'm very excited to say I'm awaiting word on the approval of Emory Law School's application to host a USPTO clinic at our school, which will largely serve underrepresented inventors. So that's a bit of my story. That's how I got into patent law from STEM. And it's been amazing and continues to be really a wonderful journey. And I'd like to share with you now some words of counsel, and I want to intersperse with that some of my experiences again, after giving you that background. So let me share. I think I have, yeah. All right, so go to the next slide. So be coachable. I want to encourage you to be willing to be coachable. It's something that my first supervisor at Procter & Gamble said about me, and I've always remembered it. And this is because there's a lot that you don't know, and acting like you do may not be the best or most efficient way to learn it. This doesn't mean that you just lie back and pester someone with questions for every little thing. But if you have a question, if you've done your research for a bit and you can't figure it out, it is okay to ask. It is. And it's better to ask so that you do the job well and on time than delaying because you're afraid to ask. Being coachable also means taking good advice, even if it may not make sense to you at first. And I think this is actually, yes, the second one I have. So I'll give you an example of this. In my first year of law school, my contracts professor gave us an ungraded practice midterm exam. So we would have experience doing these essay exams. Law school is special in that you only have a single exam for the course that's graded. After we did it, he handed out the model answer, went over it with us. And after going over it with us, he said something strange. He encouraged us to take the exam again on our own, time ourselves and do it. And it was strange because we'd already seen the model answer. We already knew, what the issues were that needed to be spotted. And so the vast majority of my classmates did not take his advice. I did. I'm like, he knows what he's talking about. Let's give it a try. What's the harm? And I did it again, and I was shocked to see how hard it was to still cover all of the issues in the time allotted, even after I had seen them. And that led me to look up many of his and other professors' old exams that were available in the library and really hone my essay writing skills. And at the end of the first semester, like I said, I was ranked number 3 in my class, and I ended up graduating number 3. Following that advice really made a huge difference. I also encourage you to be careful who you listen to. And this I also alluded to earlier, is this someone who's giving you advice who's already achieved what you're trying to accomplish? Or is this a peer, someone on your level who hasn't done it, or someone you saw on TikTok? You have to weigh any advice that you're given, of course, but look for and seek to emulate people who have accomplished what you are seeking to accomplish. Ask them what they did and consider taking their advice. I also want to encourage you to be proactive in honing your writing skills. And this is not necessarily because you might want to become a patent attorney. Even as a patent agent, just written communication is important. And it's important. When I was at Procter & Gamble, we had to write these biweekly memos, one-page memos about our research progress, and the memos would go throughout the company. And I had to get really good at being concise, precise, and accurate. Concise, precise, and accurate. And those 3 foci have really stood me in good stead in the practice of patent law, incredibly helpful to me in law school as well. What else? You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Really, really true. So review those emails before you send them out. Be on time. Do what you can to make a good first impression. I'm sharing this because I spoke with a young woman not too long ago, and it was really frustrating because she had had a good job. She'd left it, she'd gotten frustrated, and then she was looking for it. And I'm like, it's always easier to get a job while you have a job, because if you leave, well, people don't know, were you fired? Was it your choice or not? You always, you look more attractive when somebody else already, wants you. So easier to get a job while you have a job. If you find you're at a place and you don't particularly enjoy the work, stick it out until you can actually find something different. If at all possible, don't just leave. Your presence matters. And so one of the speakers prior to me, Richard, alluded to it, the importance of diversifying patent law, the patent field. It really does matter. I have a paper coming out soon based on a talk I gave at Marquette Law School entitled Innovator Ecosystem Diversity as a Global Competitiveness Imperative. And there I was arguing that America's global competition with China is kind of out of balance because China is very focused on innovation and getting everyone to innovate. And we need that same kind of all hands on deck approach, but we're leaving too many of our potential innovators behind by not making opportunities available to women, to underrepresented groups, people of color, veterans, you name it. I read a BBC story a few years ago about how China is so fixated on increasing patenting and innovation that not only did it offer government subsidies for all inventors, one of its invention motivation programs offers prisoners reduced sentences if they come up with patentable inventions. I'm not saying we have to do that, but we really need to focus on increasing the opportunities for everyone who wants to be involved in invention and innovation. Diversity matters in the ranks of IP practitioners as well, patent agents, patent attorneys, and I'll provide an example also from my own experience. Part of the reason, as I mentioned, that I became a patent attorney was my experience working with patent attorneys at Procter & Gamble. And in fact, I might not have been a co-inventor on my first patent if it were not for a female patent attorney. Her name was Tara Rosnell, who saw my name in lab notebooks and other documents and sought me out. I had moved to a different group in the company. I think I was working in beverages, Hawaiian Punch at the time. But she sought me out to investigate whether I had contributed to the conception of the invention and the patent application that she was preparing. And I have always been grateful for her diligence. We need patent agents, patent practitioners who can see diverse inventors, who can relate to their experiences, who can find value in their innovative solutions, who see them as inventors capable of inventive contributions. That is not to say others cannot, but let's increase the odds. It matters. You matter. And finally, I encourage you to appreciate this opportunity, this amazing opportunity that you have to be in this program. Like me, Professor Sather and me, there are people who believe in you, who believe in your ability to excel in this by applying grit, applying determination, and the many wonderful gifts that you have. Everyone does not get this opportunity. There were others who applied and were not selected. You're going to have the opportunity to take the patent bar exam for free with preparation that costs a lot of money. Do your best and take it once and be done with it. And when things get tough while you are preparing, and I assure you they will get tough, reach out to your mentors, reach out to me. I will encourage you and remind you why you really want to do this, why it is worth it. In May of 1993, 3 months before I started law school, I very intentionally drove to Emory's campus and attended the law school graduation. I did that because I wanted that image in my mind before I started classes, so that when things got rough, that vision would help me to keep pushing through. And it did. I knew what the end looked like. I knew what walking across that stage looked like. When it gets tough, and it will get tough, think about me and the other folks you're going to hear from this evening and the other folks that you're going to meet who are on the other side, who have accomplished what you're trying to accomplish, and be encouraged to know that you can do it too. I also want you to think about some people you do not know. They are the women like you who will be coming behind you into this program. This program is free to you, but it is not free. You've been given a very valuable gift. Treat it well and do your best so that those who fund it will continue to make it available for others in the future. Take advantage of this wonderful opportunity of networking with your cohort and the others who you will meet. These are also going to be professionals. Some of you are professionals now. And this is a great opportunity. The field of law networking it's really a thing. It's really a thing. So I hope hearing about my journey in patent law has motivated you in further determining to find your path in this incredible field. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ayana. I wish you all the best. I would love to hear from you if I can be of any help or assistance, or if you have questions for me, feel free to reach out.
Wow. Thank you so much, Margo. I think you just exceeded my expectations. I was just thinking, I'm so glad I'm recording so that I can look at this again, you know? So thank you. So many valuable points. It was just perfect, perfect, excellent. Exactly what we needed
No,
from
praise God.
STEM and then the scope of the patent field. Oh, brilliant. Loved it.
So glad.
So my goal is for us to take a break at 7:30. So that means we have like 5 minutes right now. Does anyone, Margo, if you're open to this, does anyone have any questions for Margo? Maybe we could take like one or two questions. this is an amazing opportunity just to ask her, just pick her brain about patent fails or anything um, about her experience. Marilyn?
Margo, I went to Alabama A&M,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
very familiar with Oakwood.
Yes, yes.
And so I'm just, I mean, you're just such a perfect
God is
example of
good.
what we can become.
Absolutely.
I would
Absolutely.
like to know what you consider was your greatest challenge
At what
in
point?
your patent journey. Can you think of anything?
Okay. Well, I
Let
guess
me
that.
let me say it another way. What
Okay.
was what did you have any issues with being coachable? Because I think that's just so important to
It
be
is so important.
coachable.
And I'm blessed with that ability, I think, to listen and to learn. I can remember when I first started working at Finnegan, and it was just a whole nother level because at Smith Gambrell, like I said, their patent group was very small at that time. So I was working with one patent attorney. And part of the reason I moved is now there are like 30, biochemical attorneys in the group that I'll be able to learn from. And people were just, they were saying, oh, well, it's a 102, G, 103, one of them. I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember that from, yes, I remember, but I didn't have it like at the top of my, like now I've memorized 102, ode and 102. I can just tell it to you. But at that time, I'm like, ooh, I've got to up my game. And I did. I pulled out the patent statute, up my game. But it doesn't mean I didn't make mistakes. And I did make a mistake. I don't remember what the mistake was, but I remember walking into the office of the partner that I was working with. His name is Tom Irving. He's a very well-known patent attorney, amazing guy. And I told him, I said, I'll probably make mistakes in the future. I said, but I'll never make that mistake again. And he was impressed. And Tom and I have such an amazing relationship that 30 years later, he has come to speak in my patent law classes every year, wherever I've been, whatever school I've been. He'll come and lecture. And he had offered, I didn't get a chance to do a federal circuit clerkship because I had family life and everything. He's like, if you want to do a clerkship, I'll write a recommendation for you. But I made sure to try to be excellent at everything I did. Didn't always succeed, but I tried. I had an attitude of excellence. And he and I were in an interview with an examiner one time, and I knew the case inside out. And the examiner made a statement that he would never have written in an office action, but it made me think about the way he was looking at our data. And I said, well, Dr. So-and-so, if you think this, da 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 da. And this was a case that had been in prosecution for something like 7 or 8 years, couldn't get it passed. We'd taken it over from another firm. And we had spent $150,000 literally trying to develop data and to respond to get him over this obviousness rejection. And he said, I'll buy that. And just like that, we got a notice of allowance. We were able to sell the patent application for like $20 million. Client was happy. So really knowing your stuff, put in the work to do your very best. And it's okay if you make a mistake, because if you have a reputation for excellence, people will give you a pass because they know that's not your norm. But it takes work.